Within the multiverse, there are many places to go, and on the outskirts of Universe E5556, we find a lone TARDIS preparing to cross a dimensional threshold. Inside, hunched over the console, flipping switches and pressing buttons, we find the pilot, a young Time Lord named Jolinar. Jolinar was instructed to travel to Universe E10 to recover a rare artifact stored there by the Time Lords long ago. What was it? No one really remembers. However, what they do recall was enough to make the High Council believe it could help turn the tide in a soon-coming war with the Daleks. Recent explorations into the Matrix has revealed its exact location. The artifact is located on a small asteroid within a secured cavern. The danger comes in the fact that Jolinar will be traveling to the Belt of Abaddon, an asteroid field located on the outskirts of a black hole. Jolinar was forewarned of the danger. The journey is considered so dangerous that Gallifrey chooses to send only one man to recover that which was lost. Aboard the TARDIS, Jolinar looks once more at the destination display. Sweat trickles down his brow as his hand hovers over the lever. The very lever which will plunge him through the dimensional threshold. Pulling the lever, the TARDIS lurches to and fro, violently throwing the Time Lord to the floor. Sparks and smoke erupt from the console mere moments before the room is blanketed in darkness. The cloister bells resound through the corridors of the time ship. Gripping the side of the console, he pulls himself to his feet just as the power returns. He glances at one of the displays, and his heart leaps within his chest. He has done it. He has crossed the threshold. He activates the view screen, and to his delight, he discovers that the TARDIS has materialized right at the entrance of the cavern. He quickly glances at the environmental conditions, pulling the lever to open the door. Stepping out of the TARDIS, he stumbles, and seemingly from nowhere, a thought crossed his mind.
Something's not right. This wasn't meant to happen.
He quickly pushes it aside. After all, he has his whole life ahead of him. He's the author of his destiny. He has 10 regenerations left in his life cycle, so how could this not be right? So little has been written, or has it? As Jolinar walks up to the sealed entrance of the cavern, he takes note of the Gallifreyan script on the door. He follows the inscribed directions and the door unlocks, sliding to the side. Before Jolinar stood the path to his success. Who knows, perhaps the recovery of this artifact will eventually lead him to the high position of Lord President. Unbeknownst to him, as he walks into the cavern, a sensor is tripped, and somewhere not far away, a scout ship is alerted, and it proceeds to his location. The Time Lord heads straight to the inner chambers where the item is said to be located. As he approached it, he immediately takes note that its shape and size doesn't match what he was told. Before him was an item that appeared to be a large red crystal, which had an eerie, pulsating energy within. As he approaches to retrieve his artifact, he hears the sounds of footsteps from behind him. Spinning around, he comes face to face with 3 soldiers whose faction he was able to identify immediately. Before Jolinar stood members of the Grey Barons, an interdimensional multi-species military coalition whose primary purpose is to eliminate the world destroyers and their creations. Their leader points at the pulsating crystal and tells the Time Lord to hand it over. Jolinar begins to beg and plead. The stone-faced soldiers ignore his cries and begin to descend upon him. At that instant, Jolinar stands up and musters all the courage he can dig up and announces his identity as Jolinar, Time Lord of Gallifrey. Hearing this, the soldiers immediately stop and kneel before this Lord of Time. Moments later, their leader stands and attempts to explain that contained within the crystal is a dark entity whose sole purpose is unspeakable horror. Jolinar shakes his head and will hear none of it. The commander tells his men to stand aside, let the Time Lord go his way. However, before they let Jolinar pass, they issue a warning.
You're a fool if you think this is wise.
Jolinar pushes past them, eager to claim that which he deserves with the successful retrieval of this artifact. Once back at the TARDIS, he gently places the crystal on the chair near the console. Seconds later, he spins around and begins entering Gallifrey's coordinates. With a smile on his face, he once again pulls the lever, and as the TARDIS lurches yet again, the Time Lord falls to the floor. Once more, the console room grows dark, and the cloister bells ring. In the chaos of crossing that dimensional threshold, the crystal falls from the chair, stirring that which resides within. Darkness fills the room, the crystal cracks open, and energy of nightmare crawls forth. Sensing the immediate danger, the TARDIS again sounds the cloister bells and performs an emergency dematerialization of an uninhabited planet. As Jolinar struggles to his feet, he momentarily forgets about the crystal and goes to the console, attempting to determine what just happened. Did they hit something? Just then, from the corner of his eyes, he sees a pulsating glow coming from the other side of the console. As he steps backwards, fear grips his heart as he watches a beast rise up and plunge its hands, its claw, something into the console. In that instant, a voice penetrates a Time Lord's mind.
Be not afraid, for your time has come. You shall bring forth new life in me.
Again, the cloister bells ring. It's as if the TARDIS itself is in pain and screaming out. Just then the time rotor begins to rise and fall. Dematerialization sounds echo from the TARDIS, but they go nowhere. In that moment, the creature both activates the TARDIS distress beacon and blasts forth a telepathic call. In that moment, deja vu settles on the young Time Lord. But how could that be? The view screen activates, and to Jolinar's horror, he sees multiple TARDISes begin to materialize. To his shock and surprise, he sees someone familiar yet distinct step out from one of the TARDISes. Exiting one of the other TARDISes is the Lord President himself. But the face...
No. It can't be. It's...
As the thought races through Jolinar's mind, the creature disengages itself from the console and pounces on him. It plunges its hands into Jolinar and begins to rip his body apart. Regeneration energy begins to surge through Jolinar, but instead of activating, it's siphoned off by the monster. It breathes deep, drinking in the regenerative energy. In his last moments, Jolinar thinks to himself,
Who am I? Where am I? What's going on?
Then this Time Lord in his third incarnation was no more. The entity, having feasted for the first time in an untold millennium, opens the TARDIS doors, slips into the shadows as it waits. It waits for the others, all his others.